Is the bottom in for Bitcoin, or are sellers just toying with us? Let's jump in to find out. Hi, this is Paul with ArcisFX with your Bitcoin update for the week. So we've been waiting for Bitcoin to give us some sign of recovery following the Black Swan event, the crash, which occurred about 10 days ago. And over the last 24 hours or so, we have had some bullish signals in the form of a switch from a downtrend to an uptrend and a breakout of this diagonal resistance level. But just to orientate you, this is 116k, very strong resistance, and this is 106k right below us. And right down here is about 103.5, 103k down here, which is essentially the most recent dip, which happened last Friday, a week after the crash on the 17th of October. So we had a higher low, a higher high, a higher low, and a higher high. But this dashed diagonal trend line represents that uptrend we were in, and the bulls were not able to hold that level. And now we are risking now putting in another lower low, which would switch from an uptrend back to a downtrend, which of course would be bearish. But the price action is sitting pretty essentially just above the 1-day 200 MA. So that is definitely the line in the sand to watch if you're looking for any bullish plays at the moment. But I would advise caution here, of course, because the altcoin market is very hesitant at the moment because Bitcoin just isn't giving investors, traders, the signals they need to enter long positions in the altcoin market with confidence. So keep your eye on the 1-day 200 MA, as any move below there would give us a lower low and an indication that more downside is to come, or at the very least, a move back down to this support area at around 103k. This is Bitcoin daily chart, which is a broader zoomed out perspective. So bears couldn't quite get the necessary move below this 200 MA to confirm more downside, indicating a potential bear trap here for sellers. But on the flip side, on this time frame, the price action is simply retesting the bottom of the previous range to confirm potentially the move from support to resistance, which of course is a bearish narrative. So the bulls really do need to get above 110k with some candle body closes on the daily chart and find its feet up here, and that might look like something like this, and then move up from there. So right now it is decision time for Bitcoin, because currently we have a narrative for a bear trap play, which is typically when Bitcoin dips a little bit, scares long investors, and then reverses just to trap the sellers. But we also have a potential bull trap narrative where people see that the bears couldn't quite break below the 200 MA and then start to enter their positions just for the bears to regain control again and head lower, which of course if it does head down to this lower support line, that'll be anywhere between about 95k and 100k depending on where we stop. But you can see if we do move below the 1-day 200 MA, as we just talking about on the other chart, that this area would start to come into focus. So it is decision time for Bitcoin at the moment. Can bulls properly take back control, or is this just the sellers toying with everybody? And just to highlight the confusing picture, this is Bitcoin 12-hour chart. And even though we didn't have a dip all the way back down to the 1-week 50 MA, which is a serious inflection point, a very important line in the sand for Bitcoin, as if we just move along down here, you can see that the 50 MA has been acting as a strong support line for the bullish narrative historically. So this is back in February 2023. So you can see how important, of course, the price action stays above the 50 on the 1-week time frame. But this, of course, is Bitcoin 12-hour chart, and we've had a breakdown of this pattern. And even though the price action did temporarily manage to recover back into it, it hasn't managed to find its feet. And currently, if we zoom in, you'll see that we are actually stuck below this lower channel resistance line, which again highlights the bearish narrative at the moment. So what do we need to see from Bitcoin? Well, as we were just discussing, we need to see a strong move back into this pattern, potentially above this diagonal trend line, and to come back down and start making moves like this. Unless you see something like that, the hesitation in the market is going to continue. So you want to be paying attention to these candle body closes, but also be prepared for a higher time frame reversal pattern. So maybe something like this. First, a retest of 107k again before we then start attacking some of these key levels. So it might look something like that. So always try and visualize what you expect from the price action. But right now, it's a very confusing picture. It could go either way, as we were just highlighting with this bull trap, bear trap scenario. But just to turn to Bitcoin 3-day chart to look at this cloud retracement narrative. So essentially, what you'll see here is that every time we have a run up, we tend to retrace, lose the 1-day 200 MA, and then come back down to tap the bottom of this cloud area. In this case, it was 49k. Then we had another breakout. This, of course, is the top of the previous range, and we put in new highs, and then we come back, and then we lose the 200 MA, and then we tap the bottom of the cloud and then we reverse from there and we retake the key moving averages and putting another new high. However, the confusing picture is here, whereas previously the bottom of the cloud coincided with the top of the previous range. Now the top of the previous range lines up with where we are right now, which would suggest that we could have a bounce from there. But of course we haven't had a move back down to the bottom of the cloud this time, which would be represented by about 89k, which would be a very steep retrace for Bitcoin. So the picture is super confusing because we've obviously had these deeper retraces prior to that, but they've also corresponded with these taps of the top of the previous range. The top of the previous range is actually 107k where we are now, meaning that a retrace back down to the bottom of the cloud would break the exact specifications of this particular pattern. But if we do lose the 1-day 200 MA, I think it's fair to say we could expect one of these deeper retraces for sure. So an interesting perspective from here, this chart is essentially telling us that we could have a bounce from 107k, or if we lose 107k, 89k will be the next line in the sand to watch.
Hi there, I'm James. I'm the founder of ArcisFX. I'd like to personally invite you to join our 24/7 trading group. This is built for traders who want an edge. Inside, you'll get access to live calls on Forex, commodities, crypto, energies, and metals, along with exclusive daily analysis designed to unlock your trading potential. And this in both traditional and now in digital markets. I'm talking Bitcoin, crypto, altcoins, and tethered currencies. You'll gain early access to insider news, real-time updates, real-time support, and premium educational content. If you want to sharpen your skills and boost your success rate, then join me and Paul in this community. This is a fast-growing community of traders who are now writing their own success stories. So don't wait. Join up now. Your edge starts right here.
But if you are a little bit more bullish at the moment on Bitcoin than most, let's just try and find you a little bit more of a bullish narrative to trade off. So this is Bitcoin 1 week log scale chart, and we of course have the price action. This is 2018. We have the price action working its way up this ascending channel, which of course has probabilities of a break to the downside at some point. Now, of course, the most important thing on this chart to pay attention to is the fact that we have these time-based fibs, 0, 272, 618, and 100%. And each time the price action reaches one of these time-based fibs, you'll see here back in October 2022, the kickoff, the start essentially of the bull run, we had a bounce, a move upwards from the price action. Then again, later that year in September at 272, we had a retrace, and then we had a bounce and a move up from here, with Bitcoin putting in some pretty serious gains in those couple of quarters. And then again, we reached the 618 in August last year, and then we had a rally from there to essentially bringing us to where we are right now, which is 100% time-based fib. And if historical patterns repeat, we could again see a further rally from here. And if that happens, we do have resistance up above, so you could look at the next target being potentially around 170k if that narrative comes into play. But you notice there is a question mark here, and it is a bit of a toss-up right now, but arguably 50-50 on what Bitcoin is going to do next, which is admittedly quite typical following the events of the last couple of weeks, and of course the continued economic uncertainty coming out of the United States. So we've got some good first signs of life from Bitcoin on the lower time frames, but we're still getting some potentially worrying signals, and the narratives on the higher time frames are still a bit of a toss-up. And also, just to underscore this is Bitcoin dominance 1 hour chart. This was the crash. These are all the liquidations which occurred, but Bitcoin dominance remains in an uptrend, giving us these higher highs and higher lows. And we've also broken out of this diagonal resistance area. And of course, when Bitcoin dominance is going up, that's not great for altcoins, as it shows that investors are very hesitant about Bitcoin's current position and are waiting for more data before they enter some of their positions. But despite this breakout of this diagonal trend line, we do have a higher low. And if we do start to see a lower low, which would be a move back down to here, that would be a sign that, of course, Bitcoin's movements are tipping a little bit more bullish than they are bearish. So Bitcoin dominance might be the barometer to watch to ascertain Bitcoin's bullish or bearish narrative going forward. But if we do have continued movement up from here, that would be a suggestion that potentially there is more downside or uncertainty for Bitcoin over the next week or so. But if Bitcoin dominance does manage to put in that lower low, and we do start to see a break below the 618 again, that would be essentially the starting gun for the recovery and for us as traders to start entering some altcoin long positions. And if you want a simpler way to navigate Bitcoin dominance, this is Bitcoin dominance daily, and we have a very straightforward green line, which if we do get a break, that would be a good signal that an altcoin market recovery is starting to come into focus. But the most important thing for Bitcoin to do right now is to hold the 1-day 200 MA, as you can see here on the 1 hour chart, and of course here on the daily chart. But that's it for now. I'm Paul with ArcisFX. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop us a comment. I'll be back on Thursday for altcoin Bitcoin picks, and Friday for my weekly live stream where you can ask questions, get me to check out tokens you're thinking of trading, and see how Bitcoin is doing at the back end of this week. And hopefully Bitcoin would have by then given us a decisive answer at which direction it wants to go in. But also just another reminder, if you're not already in our private group, you can check out the link in the description, as we would love to have you. Catch you in the next one.